What up, Gravity Gang? Welcome to episode 8. Today we're joined by a very, very special guest. We keep bringing you so many of these guests, so you better be tuning in for these. Christian, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So how do people know you as? It's not normally Christian, is it?
No, they call me Dippo.
There you go. What's the story behind that?
It's my surname. So my surname's Dippo. I'm originally from Italy. I was born and raised there. I moved to London when I was 12. And so my surname causes a few problems, the spelling in particular. There's an apostrophe thrown in. So just for convenience, Dippo emerged.
Good. Well, that's good to know because I didn't know that. So obviously we've met you a couple of times. And like I said, it's an absolute pleasure to have you down. We've met you always in a calisthenics setting. So perhaps let's just start with that. How did you get into Cali?
Yes, I've actually been reflecting on this quite a lot lately because I had a Facebook memory pop up of me trying to learn a handstand. That was about 3 years ago. Just over 3 years ago, September 2019. And so that's round about when I started my calisthenics journey. I've always been sporty, always. I did judo when I was a kid. That turned into wushu quan, kickboxing. I then got into like skateboarding and just stuff like that. I had a BMX for a while. But then I really got into Wing Chun, another martial art, which I really was super keen on. And I studied that seriously for like 6 years. And then I went to uni, got distracted, and then, I sort of forgot about fitness really. And then during the pandemic, just before the pandemic, I was just about to start work for an esports company, a gaming company. And obviously one of the byproducts of that was spending a lot of time at the computer. So, 15 hours a day. And so it's not a coincidence, I think, that my calisthenics journey started around about the same time. After a significant sort of absence from any form of fitness, I realised that my mobility wasn't very good. I just wasn't really functioning in the way that I expected myself to sort of function. I'm 40 years old now. So this is 3 years ago. So, I started then. And I think that the journey really took a more serious and significant path one day during lockdown when I stumbled into the Steel Warriors Park, in the Steel Warriors gym, I should say, in Ruskin Park. And on that day, that fateful day, I met SK, so Shikadi, Shax, and Simone Ming. And I saw them doing their thing, and because I've been watching a few YouTube videos over the last couple of months and training at home on my own set of P-bars, and I thought, oh wow, there's a place here near home, near my mum's house too, that I can come to. Like, obviously the fact that it was lockdown meant I can come here every day. And so that's how the sort of process began. And, what I think is, super interesting about this is, I suppose you can argue that from day one, at least in the Steel Warriors sense, it was community and the power of community that sort of, put me firmly on track. Whereas before it was a little bit of this, a bit of bedroom training. I'm just going to watch a couple of videos. Shout out to Teo, by the way, Abnormal Beings, because he's one of the first sort of guys that I saw providing helpful instruction around how to do Cali. And so then it just sort of began there, and you know how it is. It's quite addictive.
It's hella addictive. I'm sure all of our followers know this.
Yeah.
Calisthenics. We've banged on about this for now 7 episodes, and we're going to do it again for the 8th one. It's just the most addictive thing in the world. Once you kind of get on that high of self-improvement, and that's the best thing about calisthenics is it feeds into every other aspect of your life. You just can't stop.
I mean, we literally wouldn't all be in this room right now if it wasn't for calisthenics. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
So, actually, that's the point. We should really introduce our second guest as well. So, Sanat over here. Sanat, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Thanks
so,
for having me.
Sanat actually came to us as Versus Gravity for help into getting into calisthenics.
Yeah.
So, Sanat, actually, do you want to just give you a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sanat, I'm 20. I'm a dental student. I'm at King's College, and I stumbled across your page. This was probably when it was like 100 or 200 followers, and it was called The Real Life Page.
The Real Life Page. Shout out to the original name.
And I remember like the handstands across like when you're in your patio and stuff like that. And then I basically was like, I'm trying to get into like bodyweight training. It's just, I thought it was just so cool. Like it's the most effective way to just get bigger, stronger, and everything. So I messaged you, and I was interested, and then we were talking for ages. And then after that, I was like, you know what? I want to actually get training from you. This is sick. So I started training August 2021, so 1 year and 2-3 months ago. And we're here today in the same room discussing everything.
How sick is it to be sat next to one of the calisthenics UK legends?
It's insane because I met Dippo. I met you probably in Oval Gym. I can't remember when, but some point in the training. And then it's obviously been an insane help, like getting to know everything and seeing what like the future is. Because obviously it takes a while to get all the big skills, but it's insane, honestly.
It's a funny. There's a funny random coincidence as well. Funny fact, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect this, right? So Sanat's mum is actually my dentist. That's crazy. I mean, what are the odds, right? Like, what are the odds? You know?
Yeah, no, because it was. I remember because it was your birthday semi recently, and I didn't know how old you were. I thought you were a lot younger, and because you look a lot younger, and then you posted it's your birthday, and I was like, oh, cool. And then my mom's always trying to understand what is calisthenics. Like, she always asks me this every day. I think she's got it now a year later, but I was like, oh, watch this video. There's this guy, and you can do it at any age. It's amazing. And I showed you a video, and she was like, wait, that's Christian. And I'm like, how do you know this guy?
What are the odds? What are the odds?
And she was like, yeah, that's my patient and everything. And I was like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's, small world, right?
Yeah.
Caddy does bring people together, right?
There you go. Well, listen, right now, your next mission is to get Sanat's mum into calisthenics.
Come on, let's go.
Start paving the way for mums to get into calisthenics. That's what we need. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And like Sam said, we all would not be here without it. So I guess the thing I want to ask you next is, where are you right now with your training? What's actually captivating you at the moment? Because I'll give you an example. For me, it's the planche. Last time I saw you, I said to you I was trying to regain my front lever. I've done that now, but now it's like, right, well, what's next? It's the planche. So for you, what's on the agenda?
So to the planche, right? So that's what first got me into the whole thing. Okay, seeing a planche performed on YouTube, I was like, okay, I need to learn that. How do I do that, basically, right? So that journey is obviously, not complete. I guess one of the beautiful things about calisthenics is that even when you learn something and you unlock a move, it doesn't take long for you to realize that you could do it better. And so you'll never really be happy with like your form. There's always, an area to improve. And so my planche journey continues. But I'm satisfied. I'm happy with where I'm at. So what I've been trying to focus on now, again, I was injured for a few months earlier in the year, and I took the opportunity to just really think about form. Getting injured often means that you have to go back to go forwards, right? And so getting injured made me realize that my mobility, is not really where it needs to be in order to sort of, hold certain lines and certain shapes, and particularly on the isometric front, on the static holds. So I spent a lot of time working on that, and I can see the benefits now already. Like, my handstands have never been straighter. So I'm quite happy with that. And now I've realised that with improved form, now it makes sense to build strength on top of improved form. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, I'm now focusing a lot more on strength training in general, just with weighted sets, dips in particular. I've got 100 kg goal. That's
what was it at the moment?
87.5.
That's big. That's big.
So yeah, so we got some. We're getting there. We're getting there. But to answer your question specifically, front lever. For me, front lever has been elusive. I weigh close to 90 kg. I'm 6 foot tall. I found it hard from the beginning, and that has a lot to do with my strength in general. Like, I find pushing a lot easier than I find pulling. Mm-hmm. So combining that with form training, I decided not that long ago, about a month, 2 months ago, to sort of spend the next 6 months really focusing on front lever traiing.
Have you ever felt like your age is a limitation? Because I feel like it hasn't. For you, you've kind of been like, fuck that, I'm going to prove that it can be done at any age.
No, not even for a second. What I've realised, though, is a disadvantage is arguably my level of mobility. Because, again, I spent 15 years doing a desk job.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite incredible. I mean, I now don't even... I was so blind at the time. I didn't realise the damage that this really does. You know, a sedentary life, you know, will really... It will have an effect on you. It will have an effect on you after 1 year. Imagine 15. And yet most people are unaware. You know, be it posture, just be it tight hips. It's usually tight hips. Combination of hips, hamstrings. So that I am aware of. And so that, you know, is something that I have to work on in general now. I think more than the average person, just because my body, where it's at, it's a little bit tighter, it's a bit stiffer. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really see that as an issue. I've never identified that as a problem. If anything, that's knowing that I have to do that is actually part of what motivates me, because I can track progress in another way, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I'm so glad you talk about mobility, because it's, and also about being progressive. The whole point about going 2 steps back when you get an injury, just to take then 1 step forward, is so important. I've learned it myself. Obviously, I talked to you the other day about front lever and how, in my opinion, it is the biggest bitch of calisthenics, because it's that one skill where you either are going to find it really easy or you can find it really hard. And I'm like you, I've found it really hard. 3 years in and out of it, finally got it back again. And literally, just like you said, you just have to focus. I want to bring in Sanat here for a second, because he's obviously understood a lot of these principles very early on from the coaching that we've given him. Sanat, from someone who's, you know, obviously we've just heard Christian's perspective as someone who's a very seasoned athlete. From your perspective, someone who's only picked up calisthenics in the last year, how important has that kind of that mentality of being especially attentive to mobility and also to good form been for you?
I think it's a lot, because when you start, you can make progress straight away. Like, that's like the beginner gains, right? And you can, to be honest, milk that out for a long time, but you start to see plateaus. I'd say like 3 to 6 months. You start to see that. But the things that really helped me improve, and people alongside me that also started their journey at the same time, is just doing it like correctly, doing the form, like doing the proper form, taking a step back, not jumping forward. So like if you're doing pull-ups, just because you can do a few doesn't mean you should just jump straight to weighted and stuff like that. And just consistently working on that has kind of helped me improve quite consistently, rather than just in one go and then have a plateau for ages. And then with mobility as well, like you always say, do your dynamic stretching at the beginning of the session, do the static stretching afterwards. I've kind of seen that, because like, for example, I couldn't raise my arm like quite far up, and now like my mobility in my lats is like, it's insane, but it's all about consistency, which is kind of helping you get somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's massive. It's literally massive. And I think that's a, you know, for everyone watching right now or listening, if you are a beginner, and it's so easy to fall into the trap of trying to find the secret sauce on YouTube. We've done it so much. Like, you know, watching a million videos on how to do a muscle up, how to do a handstand. At the end of the day, you can take any one of those methods, and as long as you stick to it long enough, you will probably get it. And, you know, like Sanat's just found out, and obviously, Christian, you've practiced as well. It's the boring shit that matters the most.
100%. I think, you know, when you start, when anyone starts, the first thing they want to do is just get strong. You know, they'll start pulling, they'll start pushing, you know, and, you know, you do obviously see gains off the back of those efforts. But in order to keep growing, in order to elevate, you have to take into account things that you might not have done at the beginning, which is effectively working on your range of motion. Yeah. And that's why, you know, if you take the time to address that from the beginning, which, by the way, no one does, right? If you do that, you save yourself a lot of time. But I feel it's one of those things that you have to go through a process to understand why it's so important to do in the first place. In other words, you have to make the mistakes to really be taught the lesson. It's like the whole, you know, it's like the kid and the flame type argument. You need to understand the damage that the limitations that you're going to create for yourself by just going straight into sort of heavy training without, you know, accompanying that with a level of mobility work, you know. That seems, I think everyone I know who does calisthenics has had an experience similar to that one.
I think that's where the beauty in having a mentor can come in, especially from a very early stage, because otherwise you are very much likely to make those mistakes. And I think one massive thing with calisthenics is that if you actually want to be good, you really have to drop your ego. So like sometimes you'll see me in the gym using literally like 2 kg, 3 kg. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care what people think of me, because I know that that's the specific weight where I can isolate a specific muscle and carry it through a range of motion in which I'm happy in. Even now for front lever, for example, I know that I would probably benefit the most actually going back 3 steps and just going back to advanced tuck. But when I'm in the gym, the ego is still kind of there. Sometimes like, I don't want to be seen doing advanced tuck. Exactly. I want to show off that, and then I'll end up doing handstands because I know I can do that. Yeah. So it's a tough thing to do, and I think that's one of the main reasons why people don't make as much progress as they probably should. And I'm sure this isn't just calisthenics. I'm sure this is kind of in all ventures of life, but specifically calisthenics, because people tend to jump the gun way too much.
Don't you feel that like once you made that change though, of like dropping the ego, that's kind of where everything changed? Because for me, naturally, like, you're going to have an ego. You go to the gym, you're going to have an ego. You want to do more and more. But when you realize it's just the 1 kg, like sometimes like literally 3 kg, like a lateral raise, I started with like 2 kg the first day because I was like, I need to see where I'm at. And just being able to do that, once you realize that and you don't care, that changed the game so much.
It's, you're 100% right. Again, because we're on the topic of front lever, I'll go back to my own one. I remember saying to Sam, because like I went on holiday for like 3 weeks. Before that, I had an airwalk into front lever, and I was like, damn, this has literally been my goal for the longest time, and I can finally do it. I remember the video we did in my garage, and we're like, what? But then all of a sudden, I came back and it's gone. My front lever just disappeared.
It walked out.
Yeah. Literally walked out. It walked off. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And honestly, the reason why I've got it back, and now I've got it back and I feel it in my lats so much more, I feel so much more powerful, is because I did exactly what you just said. I dropped the ego, and shout out to Shenflo here for this. Absolute baller when it comes to front lever. I worked on the half lay because I knew that was the progression I could work on. And I mastered that progression, and now as a result, my front lever's back. So yeah, I completely agree.
So this is why I would see the benefits of actually going right back to the beginning and working on the 3 most important things: depression, retraction, protraction. Mm-hmm. For me, I know my front lever sucks right now because I never really worked on retraction that much. So I know that if I was to do something similar to Isan, I'd actually have to go right back to the start, literally probably in tuck/advanced tucks, and just really focus on retraction. But it's a journey I'm not kind of at the moment willing to do. So I think
I'll give you a more extreme example, because when I injured myself in I think it was around about March this year, and the injury, by the way, was just through overtraining and poor routine. I'm the first to admit that. I mean, I was training heavily, enjoying my training, I was warming up, stretching correctly, but it was the post-workout discipline that was lacking for me. So I would just go home, I just end up doing that's okay once or twice, but if you make a habit of that and you don't take your sort of post-workout sort of treatment, light stretch.
What do you do for that actually?
Bands.
Yeah.
I just if I'm pulling, for example, now, I'll just make sure that my lats are fully sort of stretched out after a workout, and then it helps with the DOMs too. But I suppose my injury was significant enough because it was not just my shoulder; it went into my forearm, my neck. I couldn't do more than a pull up, like at one point. So for me, I literally, talk about dropping ego, I had to go back to doing pulls with bands. From
hard, man.
From black to red to no bands, and just to get back up. And I found it hard. There were points when I, felt a little bit embarrassed, but that's just you. That's just me in my head. Yeah. No one really at the end of the day cares.
It depends how much you want it. If you fucking love it and you want it, you'll do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right?
But that is, I think for me it was quite an interesting experience because it was humbling in its own right. I mean, I'm very aware how humbling the calisthenics process is because I'm involved in it. But this particular experience, really sort of added to that even more. And it made me think, well, it's either go through this process of, retraining with bands or just give up.
Yeah.
Because you're struggling with just, getting your form correct on a basic pull. So I went back. It didn't take too long to get back, but...
one thing we've noticed as well is, especially with a lot of like the top guys that everyone knows, like the Onizuka, Hristov, the Bulgarian guy, Matthews, that like the people that perform at top level, they've all had a major injury. Specifically, it seems to be like a bicep tear, and they like because often you can see it happen in live, right? Like one day from the next, they're like, oh fuck, I've got an injury now, and their mentality is all like, no, I'm fucking coming back stronger. But they all take their progress and they rehab super seriously. Like you can literally see them doing like you're saying, like banded pull-ups or like 2 kg. Like I remember when Matthew Zlett had a cast on his arm from the bicep, he was just doing this. Like from the day he got out of the gym, he was back. From the day he got out of the hospital, he was back in the gym, working on something. So I think it's just that mentality, it's that obsessive, compulsive, like desire to just want to get back to the stage and even surpass that.
Absolutely.
You can't really stop, to be honest. Like, literally what you're saying, like, usually when people get injured, I had like an ankle injury, and the whole idea, like you've said many, many times, is just you have to keep doing, even if it's the smallest thing, you just have to keep doing. But bringing back to injuries, though, and the thing you said before was having a mentor. Yeah. So I didn't have any crazy injuries. I like a ligament in my ankle was torn, but that's not the craziest thing. I could still do other stuff. But then I experimented some things, and I also learned from like my mentor's mistakes and also other people I know. And like, because I've seen everyone have these injuries, I don't know. I'm kind of scared for it in a way, which is why I take my thing seriously. Because you've seen like everyone's seen like the bicep tear when you're doing bicep curls and stuff. It's something I don't want to have ever. And stuff like iron cross. Whenever you're training it, it's always like you just don't want to do that. So you kind of learn in one way or another. It's either you do it or you learn from someone else doing it.
100%. And for some people, that injury is life changing. Like I don't know if you guys remember a guy called Adam Raw. Back in the day, he was one of the OG kind of like big calisthenics guys, like massive Ukrainian guy, kind of the equivalent of Matthew Zlett, but back in the day. Like this dude was just fucking crazy. He had a bicep tear, but a bad bicep tear. He's never been the same since. Like he's basically had to give up calisthenics. He's still in the scene, but kind of more on the back seat, and that must be fucking depressing. Your whole life's dedicated to one thing, and then now you're fucked. And presumably it was something that could have been prevented.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to touch upon as we're talking about like being meticulous with your planning, your training, and obviously all of those things. Christian, you said that you used to do skateboarding.
Yeah.
Sam and I both used to dabble in skateboarding. Sam more so than me when we were at uni. Yeah. So we know just how you have to keep practicing things over and over and over and over and over and over again. I think for me it took me 3 months to get the ollie.
Well, and then the moving ollie's another year after that.
Honestly, like it was embarrassing. Like we would be at South Bank skate park just trying to do a moving ollie. Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about that because obviously both sports are very similar in that sense.
Do you know what? I'm glad you said that because that I firmly believe that. The community and the training sessions. I mean, for me, again, skateboarding. How did that happen? Well, it wasn't a decision I took on my own. There were friends involved, and that led to meeting more people. South Bank specifically, when South Bank was actually skatable, it's a fraction of what it used to be now, a shadow of what it used to be. Really? It used to be much better, much bigger. Really? Yeah, completely. It was crazy. And I've always said this. I've said that there's many parallels with training sessions. And skate sessions, jam sessions, where people will get together. This is how you can justify training for like 4 or 5 hours a day in a park or in an outdoor gym in a Cali setting, basically, because you're not literally training for 5-6 hours. You're spending time with people. You're exchanging ideas, information, community. And that I feel is the same with skateboarding. What I like as well, as a comparison, is specifically the content. It's very low production, but it's quite,
exciting.
It's exciting because it's creative. It's quite raw. The techniques and the angles that the skaters have figured out that work best for skateboarding is not too dissimilar from what, like us Cali athletes have done and do with angles and, particular sort of focus on backdrop and things like that. Well, in calisthenics. There's a lot of similarities, and there's dedication and consistency, and there's community, and there's fandom, and there's individuals that are successful, and those that are community leaders, and so on and so forth. And it's urban as well, and to an extent, perhaps calling skateboarding now subcultural doesn't really feel right. It's in the Olympics, Yeah. But it has that edge on it, and that's what I feel street workout has too. And I hope it stays that way. To be honest with you.
So that leads me on to the next topic that I really want to cover. Because you are at the forefront of it. Community in street workout, making street workout, like you say, something to behold for not just the kind of underground scene that people know about it, but putting it on the main stage. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about where you are with some of your projects and specifically the massive event on Sunday?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. So obviously I'm involved with the Calisseum project alongside Pez and Alexis, 3 of us. And the team's growing. There's more people involved, but fundamentally, it's the three of us that are really trying to build this. And Calisseum is sort of born out of an idea, a belief that it's only fair if as many people as possible get to experience the holistic benefits of calisthenics. Because, our experiences, have been, such that we've seen the power that, this sport, this discipline can have physically and mentally. But particularly when you add the sort of the inclusivity element on top. How it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, what state you're in. This is the optimum way of ultimately exercising and maintaining a level of fitness. You can take it really far if you want, or you can not. But as long as you're sort of doing something that involves calisthenics, you're obviously making significant progress, physically and mentally, as I said. And so Calisseum now is really the embodiment of that, this idea that we want to get people involved. So it's our 12th event on Sunday, and it's free. And the whole idea behind it is to make it inclusive and accessible to as many people as possible who want to compete, who want to test their strength against other people, like-minded people. So it's a gym box. We're super excited. We have a new format that we're testing. Prior to this event, the idea was to sort of, the focus was on head-to-head battles, and that's cool because, it's fun as well. But I think in order to make it more inclusive and streamline the process, we just basically have to get more people on the bars at the same time. Yeah. So that's why we've come up with a format now that we're going to test on Sunday. Should work, but eager to hear feedback. We don't claim to have the formula, but I feel quite confident about this one this time. We're coming at it super organized. In the past, obviously, we've learned from experience. But I think the frequency with which we put these things on, which is one a month, means that now 12 events in, 11, this will be the 12th. We're coming into this one, I think, with a really good understanding of what we need to do to make it fun, to make it aspirational, and ultimately to make sure that people, really get behind the idea of, taking calisthenics seriously as a community project.
Yeah, I mean, I think I speak on behalf of all of us that what you guys are doing is amazing. I mean, I'm not sure about you, Sanat, but our first ever calisthenics event was the Brunel one. Right. Was that your first one as well? Yeah, and I mean what I love about it is that obviously I know you say that community is the biggest aspect as well. It's sick because especially from people that maybe not even who are just starting, but people kind of maybe on our level or maybe when you were at Brunel, it's it gives you an opportunity to compete, whereas most things out there or sports, to compete you have to be one of the best in the best. Yeah. So there's this massive gap whereby you don't really ever feel like you're part of anything. Like if you start playing football now, I mean, I guess you could do Sunday football. Football's probably a shit example because it's such a big sport. But yeah, calisthenics, it really gives you that into the community. It's free as well. And I mean, even during lockdown, the best part about calisthenics is going to the parks. Yeah. It's training with people. It's meeting people. It is honestly just like skateboarding.
But you make a really interesting point and a very valuable one too, which is the fact that, look, these events are designed for you to really test your strength. I mean, if you win, fantastic. I mean, apart from the fact there's some really cool prizes, it is empowering to say I won a calisthenics event. But I think what we've tried to build here is a platform where, if you take part and you leave, you still leave like a winner, if you will. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because, you'll get to spend time in a really sort of, I think, well thought out way with like-minded people. And it's very, this is all about, I don't know, self-development and, realizing your potential in a way. So you can't really leave like a loser, if you will. It's a different type of competition. But interestingly, this time, if you take part, what you'll leave with is a score. And this is an important distinguishing factor from previous events, because now with a score, you effectively have a benchmark of your strength, which you'll be able to use against yourself, assuming you take part more than once, or you'll be able to see how you stack up against people in other markets and other countries. As this format rolls out, and we're going to Spain next year, Ireland too. We should be going to the States on a 5-city tour. Mm-hmm. So this format for the first time will allow us, and perhaps calisthenics, at a interesting level, on a global level potentially, it will allow us to have a leaderboard effectively that enables everyone to understand, how they stack up against others.
I think that's the most valuable bit about calisthenics. For me, what you just said, obviously, it's really great to be able to gamify it and allow other people to see how they stack up against others. However, for people who are just starting, I think the most powerful thing that you just said there is it gives them a baseline for themselves. Because
Absolutely.
the best thing about calisthenics, and perhaps you don't get this with other sports, right? Because you mentioned football, Sam. There are some people that are just better at football because, some people have better foot-eye coordination, if you will. But with calisthenics, no one really starts at an insane level. You're not just going to suddenly look at a planche and go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to give that a go. Bang, you do a planche. No one does that. Whereas some people naturally are better at football than others. Some people are naturally better swimmers than others. So calisthenics is one of those sports where we all start on nearly the same level. And so for loads of beginners out there, if you do want to try and test where you are, and we actually spoke about this with Pat the other day, Pat Chads, the best thing about calisthenics is, and you said this, it's the community where you've got like-minded individuals. And if you were to go and speak to someone like you mentioned, Abnormal Beings, one of the top guys in the UK, he will happily sit there and speak to you.
Yeah.
Right? Which is so sick.
Well, he is a legend, though.
He is a legend.
He's one of the friendliest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
It doesn't even just have to be him. You can talk to someone like Small Bar Spartan, right?
Yeah.
Anyone. They'll sit there and they'll all talk to you. And that's the best thing. So, for all of our followers, I think we urge you guys to try and get to these events, test out yourself. And like Christian said, you don't even have to use it as a way of standing how you are against other people. Use it to baseline your own strength. Go away for a few months, come back to the next event, test it again, see how you perform. And that, I think, is the best thing about calisthenics, is it's all personal.
Yeah, totally. And, everyone's on their journey, and we've done 12 events now, and there's familiar faces, and there's people that, have come to each and every one. This time, for the first time, we have people coming from other countries. So we have people come from the Netherlands, from Spain, which is great, And to your point, test yourself. I mean, I think that really is what this is about. Testing yourself. And for a lot of people as well, remember, there isn't anything like this. Mm-hmm. There isn't something that, they can, again, and this is it is really important that we don't charge for this. That when I say that this is designed to be as inclusive as it can be, I mean, that's how we're doing it. So come along, get involved. It's a great experience. You'll come out of it with something. You will not leave empty-handed in a way. You'll get something from it, even if it is, you'll learn something. You'll meet someone. You'll meet more people. You'll have a great day. And I think the prizes seem to be getting better as well, which is really cool. Nice. So yeah, shout out to Gravity, Vivo, for their support.
I think the competition could act as a catalyst for your journey. I mean, you hear all the time, people maybe who are a bit on the heavier side who say, I'm going to sign up for a marathon. And then they do that marathon and then they're never the same afterwards. What is it? This is it's a competition that's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that same format in that sense. So it's what it is true accountability. And we bang on about this all the time, that accountability is one of the most important things to be successful in life. It's easier to be held accountable by others. But for that, you require a specific social circle. Right? Some people might not have that social circle at hand. Maybe they have no friends, or just their friends are just not this kind of people. They actually don't want to see them do well. So they'll be the ones, but oh, fuck going to that competition. You don't want that. Let's just hang out or smoke weed or whatever. So signing yourself up to a competition, it's accountability. I mean, I've definitely spoken this at length. My favorite training arc, if you want, for the anime fans out there, was when I was training for Body Strong. So that was the first competition that we ever competed in, and just having that competition in mind, like my diet was never been better, my confidence, it was just sick waking up every morning and having that focus. I came last, but as you say, I left with something. Absolutely. Like that ignited something. And even the Calisseum, the other one we competed in April, that was the same stuff. And I've been buzzing for this one for the last month, just having a specific date on your calendar. It's like when you're a kid and you have Christmas to look forward to. Just sign up. Even if you think you're going to be the last, like, you're not going to embarrass yourself. It could be the defining moment. You could 4 years later look back and be like, fucking hell, do you remember when I went to that competition I was last and now I'm first?
Look at me.
I'm the best in the country. So you never know.
Well, I think the good thing, we think is a good thing, we put an event on every month. This event the spaces, I say sold out for convenience, but the spaces were taken, I think, in an hour. All slots gone. So it's a good thing for us because now we have the argument to basically look for a bigger space. We can now start to justify it, which means more people can take part, which means that the sport becomes more accessible and inclusive. And so hopefully there's the beginning of a virtuous cycle here. But the other thing as well is what we've realised now is that we're probably going to have to make some alterations just to the format in itself. I mean, we have a statics round, 16 round knockout tournament, and we had like 30 people apply. So all of a sudden now, it's made us think, okay, crikey, well, how do we manage this now? How do we, what steps do we now need to take to make this as fair and again as inclusive as possible? This time round, in case anyone's wondering, we've created an undercard static round for those of just generally speaking a lower ability compared to some of the more elite athletes that are taking place. It's fair for now, but as we move forwards, we're going to have to start thinking about criteria potentially. How do we make this as fair as we possibly can? Yeah. How do we? It's very difficult to please everyone, but don't lose sight of the fact that obviously it's so important that we at Calisseum, focus a lot of our efforts on the beginner and the beginner mindset. We all know what it's like to be a beginner, and we all know how important it is to have some encouragement. And so these events, if we were to slap a price tag on them, it would discourage a lot of people from taking part. Particularly youngers who don't maybe even have a job or that's not where they're at in their life stage. So there's some interesting thoughts for us to consider as we move forward. And then like we were talking about privately, and perhaps this is not for this this podcast, perhaps for another one. Obviously that is just one part of what Calisseum is and does. Calisseum spends a lot of time working with the public sector, with local authorities, with disengaged youth, one way or the other, pupil referral units, care homes, prisons. So again, it's really important that we stay true to this idea of making calisthenics, keeping calisthenics as inclusive and as attractive as possible because of that. Because at the end of the day, you can't really own the pull up or the push up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So let's create something that is balanced and that works. Obviously a lot of energy goes into this and that needs to be justified too. But fundamentally, the mission and the project that I'm involved in, Calisseum, is designed to sort of have that longevity built into it because we're trying to make it ultimately as accessible as we possibly can to everyone. Literally everyone. Yeah. There's no one that doesn't really, sort of benefit from getting involved with this in one way, shape or form.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you guys definitely deliver. I mean, every single Calisseum event we've been to, the energy is it's sick. It's sick. I think that's almost the best part about it, even coming from someone who's both competed in it and watched it. Sometimes even watching it's more fun because then you actually get to enjoy the event. You're not really focused on doing your pull-ups or warming up or whatever. So yeah, it's sick.
I think what's so nice though is that seeing it from an outside perspective, you're obviously running everything, but it once started out, I wasn't there for the first one, but it once started out with less people, not many people knowing about calisthenics, but it's a positive feedback loop. So you do more events, people understand it more, and you're at a place now where there are more people trying to compete, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the beauty of the self-development side and the business side of this thing.
It's true. That's very, very true.
I think what's also so sick about it, I noticed this at the last one that we went to in Gymbox, Farringdon, is... and we suffer from this a lot because our page, our Instagram page, and to be honest, the brand that we've cultivated is so centered around self-improvement, self-development, and physical and mental. I guess striving for physical and mental excellence, right? And we appeal to a very male-dominated demographic. But the beautiful thing about Calisseum is, and I noticed this last time I went, you've got loads of women turning up to compete in what would look like on the face of it a very male-dominated sport. I think I even spoke to a lady in a headscarf there, which was mad because even from because obviously I come from a similar background. When I spoke to her and I said, "This is unbelievable that you're here. Well done," and she said, "Yeah, no one else in my family even knew I was doing this." And I was like, that's incredible. The fact that you can take yourself there from, doing, she said, I think she struggled with the dips. She couldn't do any dips properly. But the fact that she turned up and she pushed herself is incredible. And that sort of mentality usually is associated with a very male kind of personality. But what you guys have done so well is you've opened the door to everyone. So I genuinely believe that when you say inclusivity, you've really nailed it.
100%.
That's what you preach.
So that's the I guess that side of Calisseum. I do want to touch upon. I know you mentioned it a little bit about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, because I do think it's really interesting, and like you said, that's the things that kind of go unheard of, but really, strikes me at least that you guys are very unsung heroes. Do you want to just give us a little bit more about what you guys do behind the scenes with, with the youth, disaffected youth?
Yeah, so I mean, to be completely honest with you, this all stems from ultimately Juan Pez, because that was the role that he was really developing and building at Steel Warriors, which is incidentally where I met Juan, how I met Juan. And so he's always been a champion of that type of community work. Intervention is a strong word, but it's not too many shades removed from what actually takes place. We're stepping in now as Calisseum to deliver provision, which is effectively calisthenics training, to people who arguably need it the most. You've got a lot of kids who, struggle with concentrating, with attention, with school, with academia in general. And calisthenics seems to, I think because it has a bit of a cool factor, it seems to resonate very positively, instantly, with a lot of disaffected young men in particular. And so what I mean, perhaps this doesn't sound as surprising when you think about it, but like what's been really interesting and to sort of notice is the fascination, which is instant, and then the sort of pivot to the realization really, which is, okay, well, I'm going to have to really change my mindset, and I'm going to have to really sort of work for this if I want to sort of, achieve and be involved with that wow factor. And so all of a sudden now you've given someone who's lacked in concentration or support or self-belief, and the list is long, right? You're giving someone like that a goal.
Yeah.
A goal that perhaps they've never had before. And then you're showing them the process and the stages required to achieve that goal. And these are skills, that ultimately are transferable to anything in your life. So imagine now if, you're dealing with, the groups of people that I mentioned, whether they're in a pupil a referral unit or a care home or even a prison, they're still people.
Yeah.
And, people that have more often than not been forgotten about, And so this type of training and this type of intervention really seems to be delivering extremely positive results. So what Calisseum does in that regard is work with facilitators, who you could argue are PTs, to basically deliver this type of provision across the country. So, we work with local authorities here in London. We work with Lambeth. We work with Wandsworth. We're gonna start working with Kensington and Chelsea. Haringey is a big one. Oxford, Leicester, Trafford in Manchester. And these are local authorities, obviously. And then schools, the prisons we work with as well. We deliver provision in free. We're going to be working more closely with the NHS, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And so this work here is I suppose it is behind the scenes, but it's actually it is the main body of work that Calisseum preoccupies itself with. Mm-hmm. The events, which is what everybody knows us for, are obviously inclusive and everything that we've already discussed. But you could argue the events are actually the side part of what Calisseum does. What we've realised is that the events are a good marketing tool to really communicate the work that we're doing with the public sector. And if you think about it, the work we're doing with the public sector, whether it's working with kids or whether disengaged or not, you're ultimately creating a fertile sort of ground for development for these to take place in a tournament eventually.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy, really. And I think, we're at the very early stages of understanding that ourselves. Make no mistake about it. We have a long way to go and we have a lot of work to do. But if you think about, our mission, our vision, our sort of mission statement, if you will, which is to get as many people as possible to experience the holistic benefits of calisthenics, well, then you see how these two sort of worlds can actually not just collide, but sort of, live comfortably together, which is the difficult thing to do, because public and private sector don't often hold hands, or they hold hands with difficulty because they have different interests. And so that's the sort of the stuff that we're doing, which we haven't communicated very well to anyone, and we're going to start doing that. And obviously there's some considerations from a marketing point of view, which is what I concern myself with. We have a lot of work to do to communicate this effectively to the right people, to the right stakeholders, to the right authorities as well. And by that I mean, bodies, government in particular, because a lot of this stuff, requires funding and requires more structure. So I think we're at the very early stages of really sort of getting to grips with how we actually communicate this work, which is so important, by the way. Because, not only do we have a public health crisis in the UK, we have a cost of living crisis, and we have just, to be frank, we have a shit show on our hands off the back of a pandemic, and how you feel about it is kind of irrelevant. But like Brexit, we've got a difficult sort of situation ahead of us, and so what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is quite important. It's more important than ever to provide some sort of meaningful solution to kids, to young people, to those that really do need it the most. And there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of chat. Everyone's sort of very eager to sort of, throw an opinion here and there, particularly at a government level. We've seen results already in the short amount of time we've been doing this. So obviously this for us is very key, and we're very eager to sort of build it. And, that's going to take some time, but I think we're in a good place.
I mean, it's amazing to hear all this stuff. I mean, I personally had no idea you guys were involved like to this extent. I think what this really shows is the beauty of calisthenics. Not only is it kind of community driven, but it also shows how just literally just working with the body that you're born with is able to influence and change your life for the better. So I think as simple as literally grabbing a bar and doing pull-ups can change your life. Like, that sounds like bullshit when you say it, but it's true. And I think that kind of, especially from my perspective, I mean, we love to talk about stuff from the perspective of our ancestors. I don't know if I'm going on a tangent now, but it's you've been given this one body. Like, kind of why fuck it up? You use it to its best ability, and also use it in a way that kind of is in accordance with how it's meant to be used. I'm not shitting on gym, because gym definitely has its place, and I'd rather someone go gym than they do nothing. But your body's not designed to just sit there and do isolation exercises. Your body's literally moved to like run, jump, squat, push-ups, pull-ups. I mean, obviously probably not front lever, but I think we would have been extinct as a species if front lever was like the main goal. But yeah, I think it's the beauty in just using your own body in with other humans, which is the community aspect. So I think it's fucking awesome what you guys are doing.
No,
I have no doubt that you guys are gonna achieve it, and it's almost an honor to be part of the community, for sure.
No, it's great to hear that, and I have to say, that Pez Juan, he's a remarkable man, because he undertakes the majority of this work single-handedly. We work together, and behind the scenes there's a lot of work that gets done to make this happen. But he is the main guy, the main figure. He really cares. Yeah, he really does, and there are not many people out there like him, really. And so I think it's just really key. If you think about how everyone has their own story, but the serendipitous nature of stumbling into calisthenics, I think, has helped virtually every person I know. Yeah. And so on that point alone, on those grounds alone, it's only fair that you kind of offer that back somehow. 100%. And so I think that really underpins the mission really here for Calisseum, and next year should be really interesting.
I think that's so. That bit was so pivotal. What you just said, giving back, because there's not one person in calisthenics that I've met who doesn't want to give back, and you see so many people on Instagram, TikTok, social media, calisthenics athletes who are always giving tips out for free. There's loads of coaches. I mean, us included. There's loads of people out there, all to do with calisthenics. You always see the gym reels on Instagram. You always see that sort of stuff, but it's usually, it comes across very vain. Whereas with the calisthenics stuff, they might show like a couple of clips of them doing like full planche or whatever. But if you really go through their content, there's so much value, and it all comes back to, I was in this position myself. I want to help you achieve the same, because I know what it did for me. And just going back to Pez, obviously we met him at Calisseum. Love to have him on, by the way, Pez. If you ever listen to this, like, please do come on.
We'll get him on.
We'll get him on. Yeah, you know, like it sometimes it does just need that person with all that passion to really drive everyone. And I think that's the perfect thing for calisthenics. Perhaps other sports could use the same. And when I say other sports, I mean like other underground sports that most people don't know about. If they had a figurehead like Pez, perhaps they would do better. But yeah, you know, what you guys, like just what Sam said, what you guys are doing is massive. And we're very grateful to be a part of it. So thank you for that.
And I think what you were saying about like having that person, I feel like in the world there's not enough role models. And what I found from calisthenics was, because it's a very self-development kind of sport, more and more role models are being born. Like, you guys are role models to me. Like, you see this, and you know, every single time I've seen you guys, you always help me. And the beauty, literally what you said, is in helping people. Because like, as soon as you achieve it, it's an amazing feeling to get something. Like when I got my muscle up recently, I felt amazing. But it was an even better feeling to help someone else do the same thing. Because like, we all have trained at Oval Gym, and then I'm actually from Northwest London. So when I moved there, the calisthenics community is non-existent. It's not a thing. So when I go to the gym and I start doing something, people come and question you, which is nice. But then I see like a kid just trying to do a muscle up, you know, the chicken wing, the standard thing, and you go and help them, and that is the most rewarding feeling.
You know what? I've just remembered I owe you a meal. So just a little context to this. Sanat, as I said earlier, he's one of our students, and we've been working relentlessly on the muscle up and handstand, and he's nailed both of them. So good to see, you know, and the fact that you're teaching other people is incredible. I said to him, if he gets his, we had a catch-up call, and I said, mate, if you get your strict muscle up today, I will treat you to a meal. Yeah. And lo and behold, he then said, you know what, bro, I'm going to go and do it. He went to the gym and he did it.
Literally straight away.
And he did it. And he sent me a video. He said, does this count? And I said, you know what? Damn, my wallet's going to hurt. But yes, it counts. So that, again, that kind of, like you say, that mentorship that exists with calisthenics, because everyone can be a mentor to everyone. You know, that's the beautiful thing. You don't need to always seek the top people. You just have to go and find someone who knows something that you don't, and then learn from them. And that's the best thing about it.
And literally, there's always something to learn. And like, obviously, this is on like a national scale. Obviously, I'm at university, and even on university scale, there's loads going on. Shout out Demi at UCL. Like, I went to one of their sessions. I'm at King's, and we hosted loads of sessions last year. But you see like one person in the middle, it starts with a planche, right? Okay, cool, but that's a bit too far to achieve straight away. But then he breaks it down for every person, every height, every gender and everything. There's girls, guys, tall, short, it doesn't matter, but it's one person teaching. And then what you see, that was last year, and now you'll see there's a few more of them. There's training officers, Max and other people. And it just grows and grows and grows. And it's like a pyramid, and it's the most positive thing there is, really.
I think because the beauty in calisthenics as well, it's because of its kind of underground nature. I'm going to bring it back to skateboarding, but because you could compare calisthenics to gymnastics, but gymnastics is, whilst they're very, very similar sports, gymnastics is very rule oriented. Like, even to the point where if your face grimaces in a certain way, you get points deducted. There's only specific moves you can do. So there's a very clear pathway to get to a specific end goal. In calisthenics, there is no clear pathway. Everyone's a different shape and size as well, which is why everyone can be a mentor, because one person might have an anatomy that suits you better, whereas this person, his training method, it just isn't going to work for you. It really isn't. And it's kind of the same in skateboarding. Even in a competition center, there is no end goal. It's kind of, it's almost more of an art form.
Yeah, totally.
Which is why this kind of, it's just a fucking freestyle. Yeah. Literally, I think that's why people love watching the statics and the freestyle events more, because it is almost just, I mean, obviously, if you're doing a weighted pull-up, the end goal is who can lift the most. Sure, whereas with the other events, which I personally love watching the most, is the statics. Yeah. And I think that's why it's so cool, because it is so underground, and there's no end goal to it.
Yeah.
I think that's such a key point that you said, though. Like, there are people of different shapes and sizes, so you can relate to them. And a big thing in calisthenics, which we haven't touched upon, is like transformational videos. You always see them, and you always see, okay, cool, full planche, shredded dude, whatever. But then if you think back, when you see the transformation videos, they were probably in the same place as you, if not worse. And it shows that you can really get to that point. And also, I just wanted to ask, touch on one thing. Obviously, everything you said is so amazing. But you were talking about the NHS and how you relate to that. Could you maybe just talk a little bit more about that? Because, like,
Yeah, sure. It's very early days.
Yeah.
But the programs that we've ultimately designed, which are first rep and built for it, have multiple use cases. You know, that's really the long and short of it. You know, so what we found again is that there's been a lot of inbound interest, not just from public health service, but also from academia in general, like universities. So we're doing we just started developing a project with the University of Greenwich and their sports science department and their head of faculty, excuse me, and with the NHS. The idea is to really get them up to speed with the type of work that we're doing and really sort of start to explore the results that are coming off the back of this type of activation or intervention. Because, as I said, it has multiple use cases. You know, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting time. You know, again, all of this stuff seems to have been sort of quite driven really by serendipity. You know, but these types of conversations are the ones that give us confidence that we are doing the right thing, or we're certainly doing something right. So I think, you know, for us, these types of this line anyway, this line of development, this line of work, will probably start to sort of make a bit more sense to us and bear more visible fruit as we come into next year. But yeah, the crossover, when you think about it, shouldn't really be that surprising.
No, it shouldn't.
You know,
like you were saying, when you're doing the work with the prisons and everyone else, it's that holistic nature of calisthenics that you can benefit. Everyone can benefit from it, and if you like tell the NHS about it, like, I mean, as in I don't know exactly what the way you're going to do it, but you'll be able to reach such a large audience so quickly.
Consider also that like fitness is not the first time it's happened in this country, but fitness is being effectively prescribed as a solution by GPs now in some cases.
Good. Finally.
So, finally. It used to happen. You know, we've gone full cycle, by the way.
Well, it should be something that's instilled from a
100%.
very young age at school.
100%. And so, you know, it's quite surprising when you think about it. This is like how to maintain, you know, like your health. Well, do some exercise. It's probably a good starting point, right? But we seem to have forgotten that somewhere down the road, down the line.
It's because you can't make money from it.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's another topic.
That's another topic, but you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So that is the sort of the angle there, because if we can be involved in the programs that we've built, if they can be used to help people turn their lives around in a way that is scalable through a partner like the NHS, then, you know, we could call that a successful mission, really. But we have a long way to go. We're just at the start of, I suppose, our conversations and exploratory discussions on that front.
I mean, this is something I'd love to see happen, because if you look at other countries that have a much bigger culture of physical activity, basically most other countries in Europe, apart from the UK, like if you can go to Eastern Europe, right, every tower block there has a pull-up bars. And speaking to people that live there, everyone uses them. Yeah. Like, whilst not everyone, because people seem to think now, like, it's either all or nothing. You either don't do any exercise or you're this fucking meathead dude. It's like just going for a walk or just going and using the pull-up bar, or going hiking. That's a culture which this country needs to cultivate a lot more. And I mean, I think we're the most obese country in Europe, or Ireland might be number one.
No, that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
we
have a public health crisis.
Yeah.
And we don't really seem to have an effective solution. If anything, we seem to be, and again, this is probably another conversation, isn't it? But we seem to be skirting and flirting dangerously close with what I would refer to as an American modus operandi. Yeah. You know, which for me, my personal opinion, is far from ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is something that would take generations to change. Yeah. I mean, I would personally love to see calisthenics parks in every single park, and not necessarily just the ones you see, you know, with the machines. Yeah. No one uses them. I've never seen, you know, there's one in Embankment, the one of the blue bars. I never see. It's just kids that use them. Yeah. How much would it cost for each council to set up a one pull-up bar and one dip bar? Yeah. That's all you need. Instead of that, or maybe have that as well, but just something in every single park. More, guarantee you, just by doing that, you don't even have to promote it. Just say there's a fucking pull-up bar in this park. More people are going to start using it. Naturally. In schools. I mean, I grew up in a different country, in Switzerland. PE there was taken seriously. Like, you had to be good at PE. You had to pass it to pass on to the next year. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. There was this girl who was overweight, had to redo the year because she didn't pass PE. That, you could argue, is good or bad. I'm not here to make that case. But the fact is that PE was serious back then. came to the UK, PE was like, it was fucking dots. No one cared. It wasn't PE. It was literally like another hour of just, oh, here you go, just play football or whatever. And I was like, this is bad. And you look at videos from high school in America back in like the 1960s or even before 40s, and they're doing literally like army style things, like moving up the pegboard with this, and literally it was fucking insane. It's not easy, but if you start them from a young age, it is. Humans are meant to be doing these movements, which we say like 10 pull-ups. Every single human should be able to do that, I believe.
So there's funny you mentioned the thing about the 40s or 50s. Obviously, there was an agenda behind that because they were preparing young men for war.
That's true.
And obviously, post that there was the Cold War where there was obviously, constant preparation. But yeah, you're completely right. It's got to be something that's fundamental, and I guess you guys are really trying to push that. So excited to see where it goes. Right, I think we're out of time today. But it's been unbelievable. I'm sure everyone can testify to that. Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Sanat, for jumping in as well. So, funny enough, guys, Sanat actually wasn't on the schedule, but he's he's such a valuable individual to us, and we really appreciate you coming on as well, man. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been awesome, man.
Amazing.
Very enjoyable.
Sam, any last remarks before we close it off?
Yeah, I'm going to destroy everyone at Calisseum on Sunday, so come prepared.
Hey, smoky settings.
Listen, right, I've seen this guy do muscle up, and no, I'm sure he's going to smash it. So, yeah, if you guys are at Calisseum on Sunday and you are listening to this, we will see you there. Obviously, Christian will see you there as well. Sanat,
I'll be there.
You'll be there?
I'm going to watch this time.
Amazing.
This episode's coming out probably two weeks after that, though, isn't it?
Yes, so yeah, this episode, we should say...
happened and I won.
So you might not be able to hear it because it's off mic, but Sam's claiming he's going to have one Calisseum by the time you listen to this. We'll see how true that is.
Come on, let's go.
But amazing. Thank you very much, Christian.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Sanat.
Love.
Thanks so much, man.
Cheers, man.
Amazing. All right, guys.
Cheers, man.
Nice.
We'll call it there. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one. Keep smashing it.